guys. That was awesome. My dad is a very interesting person. He's an interesting character. One of the things he loves is Southern gospel. And so he would have loved that song. In fact, for years it was a tradition he would go to the gospel quartet convention, Southern Gospel Convention in Kentucky. And so I never got to go with him, but one of these days we were hoping to go. He loves gospel music. So thank you guys so much. Beautiful song, just a closer walk with God. Isn't that something we should all want? Absolutely. We've been going through the book of Esther. Those of you who have been missing the last couple of months. Grateful to see you guys here. It's great to worship together. Man, I was thinking about that. We were gone last week. Over the last few months, I've been gone on various trips and things, and it's just something that just comes up every time. It's like, man, I wish I was home. I wish I was back with my family. I miss you guys every time I'm gone. So it's great to be back here, worshiping together, going through the book of Esther. And we've been doing a quick review for those who, well, we're going to do a quick review just to go through, remind ourselves where we're at. We're in chapter 4 now. But before we do that, if you'll just bow your heads with me one last time. We'll invite the Lord's presence here. Father, we are so grateful and so thankful for a place and a time to come and worship you together. And now as we dig into your word, I ask that you would bring your Holy Spirit, and you would be here. And that as we dig into the scriptures, that we would get a clearer picture of your face. We ask this in your name. Amen. So Esther 1, we went through it's talking about the exile, Jews who are still in exile in Persia. And I was thinking about this the other day. When we talk about this, we often kind of throw them under the bus, right? They weren't supposed to be there. That was the whole thing. And we even preached about that. And while that is true, I thought about this the other day. I thought about an analogy. I said, what would happen if, let's say, in the next few years, the government says, all of you who are of German descent, the EU is kind of going down. You know about the British, the British kingdom, the UK has pulled out now, and so the German people as a whole, they're actually negative. The birth rate is going down. So anyone who has at least 50% German descent, we need you to go back to your homeland so that we can have a better American presence there. Right? I thought about that. Now, I'm the son of immigrants like 9 different times. But the furthest one that goes back is from my Argentinian side, my dad's mom's side. We are immigrants. I'm about 6 countries away from our country of origin there in France. They were French Huguenots that fled to Switzerland to avoid persecution, but then fled to Argentina. From Argentina, they then went to Canada, and from Canada, they went to California. So I'm talking to those of you who are 2 or 3 generations in. 2 or 3 generations in like me. Go back to the land of your origin. Now, I have been fortunate enough to visit most of the places where my family has come from. In fact, I was 2 when we went to Argentina, but technically, I was there. But I can tell you right now, I have no connection to any of those places. I was born here, I lived here, speak the language, I know the culture. This is my home. So I can understand a little bit why the Jews were reluctant to leave. Imagine that right now. Okay, you got to go. Well, 401k, is that going to... Nope, you got to start all from the beginning. It's a little easier to take those judgment stones and put them down when we think about it in that context. But in any case, they are still there. They are in Persia. The king goes on a horrible spring break trip, wakes up with a weird tattoo, and divorced. We don't know biblically about the tattoo, but I have enough acquaintances that have gone on wild benders to notice a pattern. So that's how I picture it. He wakes up, he goes, what's that, and where's my wife? Fix the problem. So his advisors get together, they sweep through the country, they kidnap all the beautiful ladies, and they force them against their will to live for the rest of their lives with the king in the hopes that the king will be happy to choose one of them and not kill them all. And it works out. He chooses Esther, and now it's great. He chooses a Jew hiding in seclusion. She's put away all the outer trappings of her religion. She displays no outwardly Jewish tendencies. And so for all intents and purposes, she's just a normal person like everybody else. In chapter 2 also, there's right at the very end, her cousin Mordecai, another guy who's hiding his heritage, reveals a plot that the king was going to die. And so now in chapter 3, we begin to see that there's something happening, something sinister stirring. A man named Haman comes on the scene. And probably because of the whole bad spring break decision thing, he ends up coming to power. This fact is the right-hand man in the greatest empire of the world. That's a lot of power. Think about what the chief of staff, the President of the United States, that power that he has. Right? That's a powerful position. And even much more so in a royal setting, right? In an oligarchy, that word is law. He says something, you go. And so the culture at the time was to bow down. And so he goes by, and Mordecai, for some reason, does not bow. For some reason, this mortal enemy. Now remember, those of you who were with us at the very beginning, we talked about Agag, right? And the bad decision that kept leading. Haman is an Agagite. Okay? So he comes from that line. He's the line of the Amalekites. So this dreaded enemy is put into power, and something snaps in Mordecai. And he goes, this is the line. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Now I'm a Jew. Right? Up until this point, I decided not. But you know what? Right here, right now, this is going to happen. For a lot of us Americans who have passed, this is World Cup time, right? Right? All of a sudden you become, right, or whatever, right? Whatever your ancestry is, right? All of a sudden it's like, yeah, this is it for Mordecai. All of a sudden he's like, nope, I'm standing on, this was it for me. And it causes problems. And Haman goes, okay, you want to do a power play? Gotcha. And he comes up with a sinister plan to kill all the Jews. A little bit of an overreaction. So he hatches this sinister plot. By the way, it's interesting to note that everybody who has to work against God's people, they always have to have a sinister plot. Isn't that interesting? They always have to work outside the law. Isn't that? I find that interesting. It's only when Satan managed to infiltrate the church that they began to work within the confines of the law to attack God's people. Whenever they were outside, they always had to do under the table. And so he comes up with a sinister plot. And now we've gotten there. And now we're in chapter 4. And chapter 4 begins with Mordecai. It's almost comical. He begins talking to Esther. They begin this dialogue through people. Now, we know from chapter 4 that there was this very significant act. And I spent quite a bit of time researching this mourning act, the tearing of the clothes, the putting on the sackcloth and ashes. And I thought that might have some significant some bearing on the story, and the point of that might be the central focus. And so, if any of you have ever done a research paper or started a sermon or anything like that, you learn that sometimes you will find something and you think, this might be interesting. You dig into it, you pour time and energy and effort into it, only to find out that it's an empty well, right? And that was kind of this for me. But I found some interesting things about this act. The tearing of the clothes and putting on sackcloth and ashes was very common for that part of the world. It was just a common thing. Persians knew about it. The Assyrians did it. All the cultures in that area, they did that. It was a very significant act. The tearing of your clothes was symbolic that something is broken inside of me. Right? Now, what would we say to that today? You're breaking my heart, right? And they would symbolize that. It's the same thing. The tearing, you're tearing me apart. They would literally, right? For guys, that makes a lot more sense, right? Like guys, we want to, we smash a wall or whatever, right? Like that's the, and that's what they would do. Now the sackcloth and ashes are two different things. The sackcloth, those of you who don't know, is essentially burlap. Anybody ever worn burlap or been around burlap or like let's say wool? Anybody ever worn like a really like coarse wool sweater, right? With no undershirt? Right? Okay, now we're talking, right? Not so fun, right? This is very similar to what like the camel's hair outfit that John, well actually he would have worn it the right way, but they would take that camel's hair and the monks in the early times to kind of do what John the Baptist had done, they would turn it inside out. So that the camel's hair, the rough stuff, was on the inside. And it was done so that you were not comfortable at any point. You could never be comfortable. It was so coarse that you could never at one time, you're sitting down, it's uncomfortable. You're standing up, you're moving, it's all uncomfortable. You're never at rest. And it was supposed to symbolize, again, there's something wrong. I'm not supposed to feel at ease until whatever is causing me to wear this is over. And then the ashes was interesting. It was this dust thing, it was this pouring out of the earth, and it was symbolic of the fact that how do I say this? It was symbolic in the sense of death is over me. Does that make sense? Right? Why do we wear black armbands today? Right? To symbolize what? A loss, right? Specifically we say a death, but it can be for other reasons. Right? Turn the flag upside down. These kinds of things. It's a sign of distress. Something is wrong. And so we wear the armband. And that was kind of the ashes. That was that symbol. It was a very powerful, poignant symbol. Now again, that does not directly tell anyone he is Jewish. But you kind of figure out from context, right? Now, has anybody ever dealt, and I know we're in the church, so this never happens, but anybody ever dealt with politics before? Anybody maybe on a local level? Okay, so you know that in any type of circle, anytime you have a social circle, there is very hard to keep secrets, right? Especially in a royal court or in political, it's very hard. If you ever watch C-SPAN or CNN or anything like that, or watch these shows, right, that kind of show behind the scenes, it might even be fake, but they'll tell you, like, secrets are very hard to keep. And so Mordecai is in mourning, right around the same time that the Jews, there's this order that the Jews are meant to be killed. Now what's interesting is Mordecai knows about this order before the king does. You begin to get this picture of Xerxes, or Artaxerxes, or however you want to pronounce it. He's a little bit of an idiot, right? Everything's happening around him, and he's kind of just like, as I begin to research it, I begin to realize, man, he's not really tuned into his community. And I wondered how many times in my life, as a Christian, I go walking around in my bubble, and because nothing is directly affecting me, I assume that everything in the world is okay. Oh, sure, I see there's pain and suffering, but I don't really... As Christians, we're meant to be plugged into our community. We're meant to know when people are suffering. We're meant to know these things. And I began to realize that it was a significant thing for me. And to question a little bit. It's like, man, it's crazy. Mordecai knows about this, and now Esther begins to know. Now again, they begin this almost comical dialogue where he begins to talk to somebody because you're not allowed, and we have no context, we don't know why. No one wearing the mourning clothes was allowed to go into the palace. We assume it might have been some sort of a traditional thing, a decorative thing. You're not supposed to be sad in front of the king, right? And so, but he's not allowed in. So he has to do this, like, communication through people. Right? So you can just imagine, hello Mordecai, how's it going? Yes, I have a message for the queen. Okay, what's up? Blah, 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 blah. He tells it. Okay. Mordecai's sitting there. What does she say? She says, meet her here at 5 o'clock. Okay. And so they just do this kind of comical back and forth. Talking. Meanwhile, everyone begins to get a picture because people talk. So people begin to realize something's up. So whether or not Esther wants it or not, now her secret's out. And so Mordecai begins to tell her, and we can turn there in Esther 4, if you've got your Bibles. Go ahead and open it up. Mordecai tells Hathach, the eunuch, what's going on. He gave a copy. Actually, Esther finds out, Mordecai doesn't come to her. Esther finds out, he goes, why is this guy in mourning? Hathach goes over, he talks to him. He comes back with a message. And she says in verse 11, all the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the king, oh, by the way, he says, you need to go to the king and tell him not to do this. And she goes, anybody who does this goes to the inner court of the king and has not been called, he has but one law, to put all to death, except to whom the king holds out his golden scepter, that they may live, right? You have golden favor. I'm going to make an exception for you. But if you just come unannounced, you're gone. Yet I myself have not been called in to go to the king for 30 days. So So they told Mordecai Esther's words. Now this infers that there could possibly have been a little rift, but we don't know. It could be that the king was busy. It doesn't really matter in the story, but it's interesting that they have not been in communication for whatever reason. Now we kind of get from context later on with the party that they're maybe not having a fight. And there are some people who believe that it was around this time that Xerxes was fighting the Greeks. He was preparing for his second campaign against them after he'd been beaten at Thermopylae and Sardis and all these different, or Salamis rather, that famous kind of time that's been immortalized in a lot of different movies and books. And so we believe that he might have been planning for this, and that's why there might have been this kind of this break. But it's interesting. She goes, he hasn't called, he's busy right now. Going into him, that's not a good plan. And Mordecai says something significant. So they told Mordecai Esther's words. And Mordecai told them to answer Esther this: do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all these other Jews. Don't think that somehow you're going to make it. You're just as much in trouble as every one of us. For if you remain completely silent at the time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such time as this. This is as close as we get to talking about God in the book of Esther. This is the moment. Mordecai looks at her and says, you're not special. Understand this. I know I didn't raise you right. I know I made bad decisions for you. I did it out of love. I did it to protect you. But understand, I was wrong. God is going to deliver us. See, every decision that Mordecai had made up to this point had been one without faith. Why shouldn't Esther pretend to be a Jew? Why should Mordecai hide his own stuff? Why did they even stay there? Because he did not have the faith to believe that God could provide for him. So he stayed where he was comfortable. He stayed where it was safe. Emotionally, physically. I'm going to stay in my comfort zone. But now, something has happened to put him out of his comfort zone that is out of his control. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to fall back on what I should have known. I'm going to go back to what I was taught. And he goes to Esther and he says, I was wrong. God is going to deliver us just as he did in the days of your fathers and their fathers before them. But if you don't step up, it's going to come on you. And who knows, maybe you were put here, quote unquote, by someone, or brackets, by someone, for this purpose, this exact reason. Now, where have we heard that before? Does anybody remember I have been put here for this reason? Anybody else? Story, what? I heard it. Joseph, right? No, Joseph was another thing. Were they in the right place? Was Joseph in the place where his fathers were supposed to be? No, he's in Egypt, right? He was sold into slavery. Something beyond his control put him in a bad spot. But God had him there for a reason. Was it his plan A? Probably not. It's a contingency plan like we talked about. But you know what? It's okay. God still got him there. This is what I like to call crunch time. What is Esther going to do? You feel the tension building? She's sitting there debating and thinking. She's going, what am I going to do? If I go to the king, I'm going to die. If I don't go to the king, I'm going to die. But I might make it. Everybody kind of knows I'm a Jew now. Thanks, Mordecai, for that. But I could somewhat still, I am the queen. I might make it. Crunch time. Now, crunch time, those of you who don't know, it's a sports term. Now, I'm a guy, so ladies, again, everything for guys relates to sports and more, so I apologize. Bear with us. All right. In sports, there's a moment called crunch time, and players who show up during crunch time are called clutch. Now, crunch time is that moment where the momentum is on the balance. It's on the precipice, right? Typically you'll see this in series. Sometimes it can happen even in a game, but typically in a series. So you'll see it every once in a while like in football, but a lot of times in a playoff series you'll see that. Now those of you who follow the NBA during this recent playoff run, you know that of course the Cavaliers swept through. They swept all the teams up until the finals. And then the Golden State Warriors went to 7 games, and 7 games. They struggled and struggled and struggled. They had all these swing moments, and then finally in the finals, Golden State went up 3-1. Oh, it looked like they were going to win. There was this crunch time moment, and boom. And Cavaliers, they came back and they won in Game 7. They won the series. And you see this all the time in sports. There is a moment in time, a moment, a space, where someone needs to step up. And if they are able to step up and make the right decisions, it can change the outcome for their team. Players who are able to do that are revered throughout history because there is something intangible about it. You can't put a number on it. You can't put a statistic on it, but there's something you know. You know when a player is clutch. You know when they come up. You want the ball in their hands. You want them at the plate. You want whatever because you know that they're going to step up when the time is right. And they can change momentum. They can change history. Now in the sports world, this happens every once in a while. But there are significant moments and significant players that have multiple times throughout their careers. Those of you who don't know, a guy named Derek Jeter played for the New York Yankees for many, many years. He was known as clutch. During the regular season, he was okay. He wasn't the best. He was very good. But when playoffs came, something snapped. And it seemed like every time that the Yankees got into the playoffs, there was Derek Jeter doing something, making a diving into the stands to make a catch, being where he's not supposed to be to make a play. Whatever it was, he was there. Hitting a home run or getting a hit when a run was needed. And whenever the other team seemed to be getting ahead, boom, there was Derek Jeter. Another famous one, Robert Horry, right, for the Lakers fans. Every time the Lakers would go on their run, right, Robert Horry was there. Of course, the famous shot. His team's down 2-1. The final seconds, the ball gets punched out to him. Boom, he hits the game-winning shot as the clock goes down. Clutch. Clutch. And there are very few moments in players' lives. When you think about the average athlete's career only lasts somewhere between 5 to 8 years. It's the average one. So they have, in those 5 to 8 years, they only have a certain amount of time to make a difference. Now, why is this important? What's the connection? What makes it here? Because this is an important moment in Esther's life. This is a crunch time moment. This is where the book begins to swing. We're just about halfway. And history is going to be determined on what she does. Now, we have the advantage of hindsight, right? Hindsight is what? 20/20, right? Oh, of course, Monday morning quarterbacks. Hey, I would have done that different. No kidding. But in the moment, Esther doesn't know which way it's going to go. Is she going to step up? And what's interesting to me is the decision she makes. So go ahead and read that. Let's go down here in verse 16. Verse 15. Esther told him to reply to Mordecai, "Go gather all the Jews who are present in Shushan, the capital, and fast for me. Neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I, my servants and I, will also fast. And I will go to the king, which is against the law. And if I die," or King James, "if I perish," what? Perish. He kills me? All right. And he kills me. Now we say that again in hindsight, but I want you to really stop and think about what Esther is saying here. I could be safe. There's a chance that I could make it. But get everyone together, pray and fast for 3 days. And then I will essentially die for you. Because there was no guarantee. In fact, if anything, it looked like she was not going to make it. By her own admission, you almost get this feeling that she's like, I'm going to die. He's not going to say yes. And yet she was willing to do that. She was willing to step up. There's an interesting thing. We've been studying the book of Romans together as a Sabbath school. We've been going through and talking about faith. And I had a wonderful professor at Southern Adventist University named Stephen Bauer. And Dr. Bauer would talk to us about faith. He taught the theology course. And he said, faith is not belief. So that's a part of it, but faith is action. Because I can believe that if I step off this stage, I'm going to fall. But if God says, step off the stage and you will float, until I take that step, I am truly not in faith. I don't have faith. Faith is stepping into the unknown, assuming that God has got your back, assuming that the reality that God says is there is in fact there. The miracle of the story of Esther, spoiler alert, is not that the Jews were all saved. Yay, right? Anybody ever celebrated Purim before? You know about it. It's a famous feast. It's one of the main feasts that the Jews have even still today. They make cute little tri-corner hats and it's delicious food. And they celebrate that we did not die. But is that the real miracle of the story? See, I don't think so. There is a theory in the literary world, and it's also in the music world, but in the literary world, that all the stories that have ever been written have already been written. All of them. And the idea is that there are only a certain amount of basic plot points that you can do. That's why we call them genre. That's why we're able to bring them all together. But he goes, basically everything that has ever been written has been written, and everything is a variation of it. Even if you try to switch it up and change it up, it's just a variation of that same theme. That's all it is. Same thing in the music world, right? There's only a limited number of chords. So every song that has ever been written has already been written. And everything else is just a variation of that. Every story in the Bible is really just one story. Every miracle is really just one miracle. Every special event is really just one special event. Because as we look at the story of Esther, we begin to notice a pattern, right? People not where they're supposed to be. Not following God's law. Something bad happens, and what happens? They do what? Cry out to God. How many times have we seen this before? A million times, right? I mean, that's the Old Testament, basically. We just wrapped up the Old Testament. Yay, we will do this thing and you will bless us. Oh no, we didn't do this thing, bad stuff happening. Please help us. Yay, he helped us. Cycle over again. Yay! 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 Now, what's interesting is typically we say what? When we talk about this is what? A lesson for who? Us, right? We want to make it about us. Oh, this is a lesson for us. God allowed it in the Bible so that we could see it and learn from their mistakes, right? It's important. Well, that is true to an extent, but Jesus, or God himself actually tells us why he allowed this to happen. Why he did these things. Why he allowed these bad events in our life, or in the history of the Jews to happen, and to allow him to do this. It's found in the book of Ezekiel. Specifically in chapter 20. Now in chapter 20 you get the same exact thing happening once again. Israel rebels. Right? Something bad happens. Specifically in this one. You get all these people rebelling. And they come to God. Right? They inquire of the Lord. And God responds. Thus says the Lord God, have you come to inquire of me? As I live, says the Lord God, I will not be inquired of by you. Will you judge them, son of man? Will you judge them? Will you make known to them the abominations of their fathers? Say to them, thus says the Lord God, on the day I chose Israel, and raised my hand in an oath to the descendants of the house of Jacob, and made myself known to them in the land of Egypt, I raised my hand in an oath, saying, I am the Lord your God. On that day I raised my hand in an oath to bring them out of the land of Egypt, sensing a pattern, into a land that I searched out for them, flowing with milk and honey. Okay? You were out, I made a deal with you. You were gone, I made a deal with you. I went, I found a perfect place, and I put you there. Okay? I did all the hard work. Alright? Then I said to them, each of you, throw away the abominations that are before you, which are before his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. But they rebelled against me and would not obey me. They did not cast away the abominations which were before their eyes, nor did they forsake the tools of Egypt. Then I said, I will pour out my fury on them and fulfill my anger against them in the midst of the land of Egypt. But I acted for who? I remember reading this when I was 19 years old. I was going through a really, really tough time in my life. As tough as a 19-year-old, right? You know, come on. But for me, it was a very tough time. I was going through a very dark place. And I remember reading this. God led me to this verse. Now, I don't recommend this. It was one of those times where I was like, ah! And I literally opened up my Bible, and it started at 19, and I was like, I don't know what this is. But the other page was 20. And I started reading through it. And I got to this. I did this for me, not for you. I love you, but I didn't do this for you. A lot of times in our lives, we get a little egocentric, don't we? God, why is this happening to me? Why are you letting this happen to me? Or we get a blessing. Thank you, God, for your blessings to me. Me, my, me. And God says, everything I do isn't for your benefit or for your destruction. It's not about you. It's about me. I created you because I am love. All this, it's about Him. And you know, it sounds kind of arrogant, but at the same time, there's a peace in that. And knowing that our problems are not as big as they seem because God is bigger than our problems. And it's not about us, it's about Him. The good times in our lives, while they are great, it's not about us, it's about God. That's why they can say every good and perfect thing comes from God. You keep going through chapter 20, he does it again and again, and he begins repeating. He says, every time you guys rebelled, I did this. And he did it for a specific reason. So that my name would not be defiled in front of the Gentiles. I brought you out, I raised you up, so that other people out there could see and know who I am, because I have love for them. You rebelled against me, I came in, I rescued you, because I wanted other people to see how I would rescue them. You ran away, I came and got you. Because I want other people to see how I will go wherever they need me to be to rescue them. When we talk about crunch time in the spiritual life, a lot of times we think it's about us. Am I going to step up and do what I need to do? The reality is, crunch time for us happens every single day. Every single day. Because Revelation 3 tells us, every day, Jesus comes to the door of our hearts, just starts knocking. Politely, nicely. Hey guys, it's me. What's up? We don't serve a Kramer God, right? People know from the show Seinfeld, right? The famous Kramer would just burst in to the door. Doesn't knock, doesn't worry about it, often creating an awkward scene because there's a deep conversation, all of a sudden, ah! We don't serve that kind of God. He doesn't just burst in. No, he sits there. Hey, it's me. Whenever you're ready. Take your time, it's okay. I'm right here. Will you let me in? You let me in? The miracle of the story of Esther is not that God saved the Jews. The miracle is that when God came knocking, Esther let him in. When God came knocking, Mordecai finally let him in. The people who had gone away, who had forgotten, who had left God, let him in. That's the miracle. Every day we have an opportunity to make that same decision. And it hit me as I was studying this, as I was reading through, as I was poring over it. The miracle of the story of Esther is that when the decision time came, they allowed God in. As the song says, you got to serve somebody. Or maybe you're the devil, or maybe you're the Lord. But you're going to have to serve somebody. You got to let somebody in. Someone's in control of your life. The story is told about a regiment in World War II. Again, World War II, I'm going to pull a Pastor Dwight here. In World War II, right after the Battle of Bastogne, the Battle of the Bulge in Belgium, there was a town that needed to be taken called Foy with significant crossroads the Germans were holding in. So Easy Company from the 506 paratroop division, went and was tasked to take the town of Foy. In charge was Lieutenant DK. He was a guy that the people didn't like, of easy company. They didn't enjoy him. They thought he was a buffoon. But he was assigned by the higher-ups, and so there was nothing they could do about it. In fact, the captain who was in charge of the entire regiment, there was nothing he could do about it. He didn't like him, but there was nothing he could do. Now, in easy company, there was a lieutenant that everyone thought should be in charge. And in fact, the story goes that when this guy would just kind of go wandering off, they would look at him for the answers and for direction. And that was this guy named Lieutenant Spears. Lieutenant Spears. And he was not originally from that company, but he had integrated himself in and become a part of their family. He was decisive. He knew what to do. So when the time came to take Foy, he was not in charge. It was Lieutenant DK. And when they came to the town, he made a critical error. Now, in war, you have to adjust. A lot of times, the best laid plans of mice and men go awry. And so you have to be able to adjust and move, but he made a critical error. He split the platoon, or he split the company into two sections. The Germans, seeing this, drove right through the middle and cut them off from each other. So now they could do a classic move, attack one side, attack the other, and they're getting decimated. And from a hill far away, Captain Winters sees his men getting destroyed. And he calls down to Lieutenant DK, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on the radio? But in that moment, in that critical moment, the lieutenant hesitated. And that hesitation slowly grew and snowballed and became a panic that paralyzed him with fear. Men are screaming at him, "Sir, what do we do? Sir, what do we do? They're getting hit with sniper fire. They're getting hit with machine gun fire. They're getting decimated. What should we do?" And he just kept responding, "Split, take the town. Split and take the town." At that point, Captain Winters had a decision to make. It might cost him his career, but he had to value his career or his men. So he made a split decision. He said, "Tell Spears he's in charge." At that moment, Lieutenant Spears became the commander of Easy Company. Now, this is not a fantastic story because Spears became commander of Easy Company, but rather of what Spears then did. He was on the east side of town, I believe, with the section that was there. And they said, "We've lost communication with our group on the other side of the town, completely covered, infiltrated by Germans, right in the middle." He gets up and in withering machine gun and hailfire literally runs through the middle of the enemy's camp to get to the other side. And they said, what shocked us and what surprised us and what made us trust him as a leader was not that he ran through the middle of the enemy to get there, because they were so surprised that he did it. It was such a bold move that they almost didn't even react until it was too late. No, what made us love him was when he came back. He became a superhero in our lives. He went through hell to make sure his men were safe. And then he came back. I want to remind you guys this week, as we think about Esther and the decision that she made, that we have choice every morning. Every morning. Because when Jesus is let in, by the way, he doesn't just assume he's in charge. Every morning, he comes and knocks. Now, if you let the enemy inside, guess what? He's there to stay. And he will take over your life, and he will destroy it, and you have to kick him out. But Jesus doesn't do it. Every morning. He just sits and knocks. But he will go through hell to make sure you are safe. And then he will come back for it. Crunch time for us happens every night. Every day. We have a choice. And maybe God put us where we are. Maybe the decisions that we made, maybe the problems and the issues and the struggles, maybe the good and the bad, maybe they have come into our lives so that we can look at that and make that decision. Choose. Who